Hey, good morning to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack here. Friday now, the 3rd of October, 2025. Great to have you along with me, everybody. I do appreciate your time and attention this morning. We do have an active pattern. No name storms out there now, but that will probably change in about a week or so. A couple of areas to watch. One centered around Florida. That will bring impacts by way of some pretty heavy rainfall. We'll go over that. And then another area maybe moving in towards the Eastern Caribbean in about a week's time or so. And then, of course, the Eastern Pacific staying quite busy as it's pretty much been all season long. So before we get into the active pattern stuff, we're going to take a look at a few stats and figures, a couple of maps for you, kind of examining where we have been so far this hurricane season. All right, so let's get started with that, shall we? Yes, we shall. First of all, the ACE chart here from Colorado State University. Some of the bigger ACE producers. And remember, ACE is accumulated cyclone energy. It's the wind output, if you will. A good metric for us weather geeks especially. So Aaron's got 32 and Gabrielle got 19. Umberto has put 26. And all the rest have been short-lived or weak. A combination of the two. So our season so far, a fairly respectable 91.6. Certainly much more than 2013, which a lot of people were comparing this season to during this flatline period, and I understand that. But then look what happened. We had Umberto, which became a Cat 5. We had Imelda, and here we are. Normally, according to the latest climatological data through 2020, we would end up at 122.5. I think we will get there and might even surpass it. Owing back to this active pattern that I think we're going to be heading back into. Here's an interesting stat, too. This is from Michael Ferragamo. A really nice set of maps that he puts out. So check out his Twitter if you are so inclined. I am. Every once in a while, I like to see what he's doing. And this is a really cool map and a really interesting set of stats. Bermuda sitting out here, kind of the crossroads of the Atlantic lately. And look at all and this is really good effort that Michael's put into this, so I'm glad I'm showing it to you. Yeah, lots of activity out there. 12, count them, 12 landfalls across Bermuda, all the way back to 1851 through this year. Imelda did so as well. This map was put out before Imelda crossed over. And so that would be the 12th landfall, 5 of which have occurred in the last 10 years. What is up with that? I don't know my fractions right off the top of my head, like, to put it as a percentage. That's fine. 5 out of 12 is pretty significant. We're almost at half. I do know that. And here's a little piece of trivia for you. As if you care, but whatever. I've been there for 2 of them. So 2 out of those 12, and again, I don't know what that fraction is, I was there for, and both of them made landfall, so I'm batting 100, right? Did not go out for Imelda, mainly because I was very worried that it would come through at night, which it did. And I was also pretty concerned, especially considering how much it cost to go to Bermuda, that it would be kind of disheveled, maybe falling apart. And there just wouldn't be much for me to do, considering that it would cost almost $3,000. What would I contribute? And all of those things certainly came to pass. They have certainly seen much worse. And one of the worst was actually Nicole in 2016, kind of a surprise hurricane. But anyway, all kinds of activity in the crossroads of the Atlantic. Maybe I can get my friend Howard out there to help me. I don't know, he might not like that actually, so never mind. I was going to say we could rename it Bermuda, the crossroads of the Atlantic. It could be a positive thing if you just don't think about hurricanes. Anyway, this is a cool map as well. I don't know who makes this. It often shows up on the Wikipedia. But I want to show you something about how impactful the season has been, considering that all of the activity has pretty much been out over the central to western Atlantic, right? And remember, Imelda, the map hasn't completed yet. Whoever updates these, Imelda did go through Bermuda just the other day, right? So what have we had? Well, look at Barry down here, way back in the early part of the season. The remnants of Barry, we'll look at another map in a moment, did cause some problems up here, partially responsible for that anyway. That caused a lot of death, a lot of misery down there. That was terrible. And then we had Chantal up here, brought a lot of, luckily no deaths that I'm aware of, but a lot of damage from flooding. There's that F word, flooding. Yeah, that's a big problem. And then the other hurricanes, Aaron and Gabrielle and Umberto and Imelda, have really plagued our friends on the Outer Banks out here in my home state of North Carolina. So if we just look at the map here, our blank interactive tracking map, I took a lot of the layers off to show you some stuff. Major impacts in Kerr County from partially the remnants and the vortmax and all that energy left over from Barry and another meteorological setup. But if you didn't have Barry, I just don't think it would have been as bad. And that resulted in a lot of deaths and, again, a lot of just pain and suffering down there. That was terrible. We can all agree. Then we had Chantal, which created a lot of mayhem up in this area near Carrboro, Durham, that area. And then the Outer Banks really have had a time of it with these hurricanes passing well offshore. Imelda down here. I mean, my goodness, it's just been bad. And I can show you. I tell you, if I could have been in the Fox Weather headquarters in New York when this happened yesterday, to see and hear their reaction, especially in the control room, when I saw this, I couldn't believe it. Talk about timing. Wow, that's incredible. Big house there collapsed, that big rogue wave coming in. And remember, the other day, I was saying that I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of those bigger rogue waves. Not that I'm some genius to figure that out. Come on. All that washing machine action, that's Ben Knowles' term. You're going to get some of these extra big waves coming in. And that's Katie Byrne down there. And whoever the cat, what? Look out. Like, dude, wow. And I know there's been a lot of talk about, people shouldn't build there, whatever. Look, I'm not even going to get into that. Maybe we shouldn't build near the coast, but what are you going to do? We're already there. It's impactful. It's a big mess. It's a big problem. But it proves my point here. This is where I'm driving this home. No hurricane landfalls, none this year in the United States, and that is happening. We lost lots of people in Texas, partially because of a tropical storm. All right? So it is about the impacts. I know we might be HurricaneTrack here, and that word hurricane carries a lot of weight. I get it. But man, think about if we had had hurricanes making landfall this year, it would probably be even worse, wouldn't it? Especially on the Outer Banks. Jeez. So anyway, I just wanted to show you, yes, we have had an impactful season, even without hurricanes making landfall. All right, so that active pattern that I talked about at the opening here, one area down here we do need to watch in and around Florida. Again, no chance at all, I think, that this would become a hurricane. We'll call it 0. And that 10% you see there, that's not 10% that this could become a hurricane. It's 10% chance of additional development to become a tropical cyclone, which by definition is a depression or stronger, right? So you got this weak area of low pressure that has formed down in the central Bahamas along the remnants of an old frontal boundary. So you got some convergence down there, a boundary. It's expected to meander in the area, and they've already had a lot of rain down in the Bahamas and parts of Florida too. Strong upper level winds are expected to prevent significant development. However, the combination of all of that stuff would produce heavy rainfall across portions of Florida and the Bahamas through the weekend. And I'm going to show you that rainfall on the GFS map in just a moment on the old computer model output. Then we really need to watch this, especially for our friends down here in the islands. We could have some impacts of greater concern coming up in about a week or so. I'll show you that too. Meanwhile, of course, the East Pac, there's Octave, and it's actually going to come back a little bit for some strange reason towards the coast and get mixed up with all of this shenanigans going on. And we might have some stuff trying to come up here towards the Baja and maybe the desert southwest of the U.S. I'll put a question mark there for now. Here's what it all looks like on the satellite loop today. There's my yellow weak low pressure area along this boundary. Lots of cooler, more drier, stable air sitting out over the Atlantic. You can tell by the cloud cover on the satellite signature. Meanwhile, that's the area we need to watch. You can already see the rotation. That's a big one. Wow, that is a large area of energy that's going to come off, continue to come off, and make its way west. And we do need to watch this in the islands, maybe eventually. Of course, these are islands too, but point is a little farther to the west and north, the islands of Puerto Rico, U.S. British Virgin Islands, etc. Yeah, still very much hurricane season, ladies and gentlemen, despite the lack of hurricane landfalls. That is my point. I've already made it, just saying it again. So what does it all look like in the land of the regular global models? By the way, I am going to be recording, maybe even doing a live YouTube about it sometime next week with my friend Mike Watkins, discussing this new realm of AI models. We're going to set that up. I'll announce when we're going to do that. I think I do want to just use my Zoom and pump it out over YouTube Live, take your questions when we do it, because this AI model stuff is just, right? Crazy, crazy stuff. Anyway, we're going to start off with the GFS, big picture of the Atlantic Basin, and then we'll dig deeper into different regions, and we'll also look at the Euro. All right? All right, so let's drop me out. This is the 5,000 foot level, the 850 millibar level, the GFS from the 6Z run. That means, ladies and gentlemen, that it was initialized at 6 Zulu time, or 2 a.m. Eastern. So what do we got? Not much out here, just a little reflection off the coast of Africa, barely there. Some of the leftover energy in the frontal system and whatever from some kind of a mix of Umberto and Imelda. Nice high pressure sitting over the eastern U.S., which has brought 50s for lows. Yuck, hate it. I'm a summer guy, but whatever. So that's what we got. So let's move this out to the next week in rather quick fashion here. And you can see a few things happen. Now we'll run it back and then go forward again. You see the different players. One of them right over here, a little weak impulse moving into Florida, south of this high sitting up here. Pretty cool dry air around and strong upper level winds. So it probably won't develop into too much in terms of wind and pressure, but it's tapping into very warm water, and it's going to bring a lot of rain. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. And then this is around day 3 or 4, roughly. That's our impulse in the Atlantic deep tropics, and that moves its way toward the islands there by exactly 1 week out. How about that? And we do need to watch that, because even just as it is there, I look at that and I go, oh, heavy rain, squalls, that's problematic, just as it shows there. Really got to reteach everybody it's not just about hurricanes. Seriously. So, yeah, a week from now, things could look pretty darn interesting. So let's back this up a little bit and move the extent over to the southeast U.S. And I want to show you on the precip moisture, we will do the total accumulated precip. So pay attention to Florida down here in the northwest Bahamas. As I move this out over the next few days, look at how all those colors start to really rack up, especially out over the open water. Hopefully it stays there. That's 4 days, 5 and 6 and 7. So through the next week, all of this purplish color indicating at least 2 inches of rain or more. Not a lot, not crazy excessive, but pretty big population centers down here. I-95, yeah, you see where I'm going. Impacts. That's going to impact everybody from basically Jacksonville south, more or less, right? With at least 2 inches of rain over the next week. Some areas need it, some areas don't. Some of these do have some bullseyes down here, a little denser color, maybe 5 inches or so. Point is, pretty heavy rainfall coming for a part of Florida and the Bahamas. So just pay attention to that if you're traveling down there. Yeah, you got to be careful if you're boating, whatever. I mean, these are impacts. That's my job. I got to point this stuff out to you. In the East Pac, don't want to ignore this. Could have another area that develops. By the way, that's Octave right there. Another area that develops comes up, and on the GFS anyway, out to about a week. Just kind of hangs out. If we switch this over real quick to the Euro brings it up. And let's see, this is I want to show the 0Z if we can. There we go. The Euro brings it up and eventually brings it into, gosh, come on, Internet. Maybe it's tidbits. I don't know. The Euro does bring it up towards the Baja, and that could bring some deep moisture to the desert southwest, but that's more than a week out, so we'll see about that. All right? All right. Finally, I want to show you one more thing here. Another set of maps. These are from the Weather Nerd site, posted on the Twitter there from Florida Tropics. And this is just kind of showing you, yep, the European ensemble. Lots of stuff aimed towards the islands, so we do need to pay attention. This, I do believe, is the ensemble from the Google DeepMind. So much to go over, isn't it? more aimed at generally the islands, and then the GEFS, that is the GFS Ensemble Forecast System, also generally aimed at the islands. So we do have an active pattern setting up as we progress through the rest of the first half of October. Yeah, so we got to pay attention to all that. So again, if you're heading down to Florida, you're already down there, whatever, pay attention to that system. Slow down on the roadways out there. Take your time. Be careful. You don't need to be hydroplaning or whatever. Impacts. And we'll see what happens over the next several days. I'll be in and out over the weekend. See what I can post here and there. Busy family time, as always. But I'll definitely be back on Monday if I don't see you over the weekend. All right? As always, thanks for tuning in, though. I appreciate your time and attention. And the most important thing, I hope you learned something. I really do. And because then I've done my job. All right? Have a great weekend. I'll see you as soon as I can. Definitely by Monday.